free-floating hostility, sponsored by parental activist groups. Now, I know I've touched upon this subject in countless videos, and where these activist groups and all this shit try and scapegoat different things for their own shitty parenting. I know I've touched on this in a couple of videos, but I think I'm going to bring up some more points that I haven't brought to light. And if I don't bring up any new points, I'll delete the video and go all this stuff. But here's just some free-flowing hostility about parental activist groups. The first thing that really pisses me off about these groups is that they try to explain why their children are like this without taking responsibility for their own shitty parenting. And I really love that about those groups. It couldn't be the shitty parenting. No, it couldn't be the shitty parenting. There's got to be the games, or the music, or the hats that these kids are wearing. Not the shitty parenting that goes into making these children. And it makes me laugh whenever I hear an argument from a parental activist group. I haven't really heard anything recent, but a couple of years ago, the whole hullabaloo about GTA games and how they're that shit, trying to scapegoat that shit. And then they talk about how drugs and alcohol and like things like Dare are like oversimplifying things when it comes to drugs and alcohol and shit like that. And they don't examine why the children are doing drugs and alcohol. With like Dare, they're an anti-drug organization, an anti-drinking organization. But they never really talk about if the parents are the root of the problem with this shit. They say that, oh, it's the friends and peer pressure and shit that make kids drink. No, maybe it's the fucking parents putting too much pressure on the fucking kid. The kid gets fucking burnt out, and the kid just turns to drugs because he or she is trying to escape the shitty reality that he lives in. That might be a fucking reason for alcohol and drug activity in children. It might not be their friends. Maybe their friends are saying, here, this might help, but it's not the main reason why the fucking kids are doing the drugs and alcohol. It's because they got a shitty home life. And I just love when these groups say it's the friends, not the parents, that are responsible for this shit. And then there's all the other fucking excuses and for drugs, and they say that pot's a gateway drug and shit like that. Whether or not it is or isn't I'm not gonna say either, but because I've never partaken of pot, so I can't really say. But I mean, the earliest thing I've ever come in contact with is alcohol. And I just hate when groups oversimplify the argument of drugs and alcohol. I fucking hate it. And they don't examine why or why not these kids are actually indulging in alcohol and drugs. And I'm repeating myself. But my favorite thing is when the parents who are being part of an activist group are so deluded about their own child that they think that the child is all bright and happy and shit, when in actuality the kid is over fucking worked. There's so much pressure on the kid that he can't express any individuality, and the kid is just burning out slowly, and the kid is getting depressed and all this shit, but the parents don't see that. They just see the kid is a good student and all of this shit. but they never see the signs of depression or psychosis, or they never see anything of that. They just see the good. Selective sight is a hell of a thing. And whenever a tragedy happens, people always say, they were so quiet, they were so good. Being quiet is not always a good fucking thing. Being quiet means that you're usually just introverted and you get so wrapped up in your own shit that you don't care about the outside world. And that's when games and reality start to blur, and that's when shit goes awry. But it's not the game's fault that the kid loses touch with the reality. It's not the game's fault. Really, it isn't. I mean, it's the parenting that just that makes these kids just crack under the fucking pressure, and they have a break in reality, and the games are the only things they know. And they also the parents never bring up in any of these kinds of situations that the children are playing the video games because they bought the systems. These parents are so anti-video games, but 9 times out of 10 they're buying the system for the child, even though they're against the games that are on the fucking console. That seems to be logically incongruous to me, to buy a game system and then be fucking surprised when your kid plays it and plays games on it. And then the whole games thing, when the parents buy the kid the game and then they play it, and then the parents don't fucking realize until there's some big controversy with other parents, and then they have this fake outrage, or real outrage, or whatever, and they're just so pissed off at themselves that they direct it towards the game, not at themselves for buying the kids the game without actually fucking paying attention to the goddamn ratings, which is at the back and front of the games. Those kinds of absentee parents just piss me the fuck off. And when these parents become self-righteous, that's when I just stop caring about them, and just just when these things just get blamed on other things other than what's really causing them, it really irks me. And I went off cam for a second, but anyway, it just pisses me off. But that's it for now. I have one word to say to these activist parents who are so far removed from reality. Go fuck yourselves and look for ratings on games and for music and all of that shit. Actually parent your child, don't let a game system or the TV parent them. Because then you don't have anybody to blame but your fucking self. But that's for now. That's all for now. Peace, love, harmony, and fuck you, you self-righteous parents. Peace out.